My thesis is that the Soviet Union, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, the Politburo, the KGB, the NKVD, the GRU, the intelligence agencies, their phony newspaper organizations, Novosti. Today it's the RT, Russia Today channel, has always supplemented their military efforts with propaganda efforts. My detractors on YouTube will say that's outrageous. They don't do that. Well, my thesis is that they do. My thesis is that they have always had some control, perhaps subtle or underhanded behind the scenes, over the international communists who are located in practically every country around the world. They had a great deal of influence over the Vietnam War protest movement. They had a great deal of influence in creating the organized and effective, militarized Hezbollah, PLO, Al-Qaeda, whatever you want to call them. And today, they have a great deal of influence behind the scenes, underhanded, in the shadows, over the communists who are still relentlessly pursuing their global warming agenda in an effort to redistribute wealth. The communist leadership of, you got to face it, that Russia is controlled by everybody in the Russian government, high up in the Russian government, is ex-KGB. Are they ex-KGB? Or have they simply changed their name? Are they still the same people with the same attitudes and outlook and goals and knowledge of how to subvert the opposition? We were called the main enemy during the Cold War. Today we are the main target. The USA is the main target of the Soviet/Russian Federation. They're good at manipulating people who are good at manipulating people, who can in turn go out and manipulate other people, thus spreading confusion and disinformation. That's what you'd like to do in a military conflict. You want to use all your resources to conquer your enemy, or at least weaken him as much as you can. The enemy is an unseen dictator who enslaves his victim inside a psychological prison of error. The striking feature of this prison is this: the windows and doors of this prison are not locked. There are no guards, no walls or fences. The victim is free to leave whenever he chooses, whenever he wants to. With that thought in mind, here's some background on Assad, the pencil-necked dictator of Syria, whom Obama wishes to overthrow as a favor to his supporters, the Muslim Brotherhood. Pencil-neck Assad is just an ordinary ruler, no worse, no better than the others. And yes, he cooperates with the Soviet Union and with Iran. But he is next on Obama's target list after Tunisia, Libya, Egypt. He's next. Obama is paying back the support he received from these radicalized Muslims Where did these radicalized Muslims come from? You may not think they're supporting Obama, but do you know their background? This also ties in with the background of Assad, the president of Syria. Syria borders Lebanon. In the 1970s, the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, now called Hezbollah, or Hamas, or Al-Qaeda, or the Muslim Brotherhood, they're either separate and related or mixed together. It's altogether a group of very dangerous and hostile Arabs focused on the United States and Israel. They're focused on their enemies, mainly the United States and Israel. The PLO in the 70s moved into Lebanon in order to maintain its armed struggle, jihad, with Israel. The PLO used violence against Lebanese civilians and created economic instability inside Lebanon. Outsiders came in and took over a country and ruined it and destroyed it, and committed atrocities against the occupants. Why did they do it? They wanted a base from which to assault Israel and gain strength and propagate their message. Why Lebanon? Well, the PLO was forced to relocate to Lebanon when King Hussein of Jordan kicked them out. They were originally in Jordan. Their origin was in the conflicts they had back in the early 60s with Israel. They attacked Israel. They lost. Israel took over some of their land as a security buffer for its own protection. Some people were displaced, and they've been calling themselves Palestinian refugees ever since. They have not lived there. The majority of them have not lived there for thousands of years. The majority of them came to the area of Palestine once Israel was established as a nation. These Arabs came from all over the Middle East to Palestine looking for jobs. That's basically it. They came there just as the Negroes in South Africa came from several countries to the country of South Africa looking for jobs. Leftists began to complain about apartheid. The whites need to be driven out, overthrown, so that there can be equality among these immigrants. In the same way, in Palestine, these so-called refugees are immigrants and the children of immigrants. Some few of them had homes in the area, and they could be classified as refugees, but as a result of a war they started and waged against Israel, before Israel even had sufficient military capacity to defend itself, these people started a war which almost annihilated Israel from the very beginning. So they were located in Jordan, and the king of Jordan kicked them out because they were a bunch of rabble-rousers, troublemakers. They were nothing but trouble. So they went to Lebanon. Lebanon borders Syria. Assad's father intervened in Lebanon in order to protect Syria from these troublemakers and to protect the Lebanese Christians. Today, these troublemakers have spread all over the world. They're very reproductively successful compared to Westerners who have 2.3 children. These have more. They're prolific, and they're in every country now. Europe, Canada, the United States. And since Obama is on the side of these troublemakers, he is now using the pretext of chemical weapons as grounds for an invasion, or at least military aid to these rebels, the very same people I'm telling you about, who back in the 70s, when I was young, routinely hijacked planes and murdered people. They have quite a bit of experience hijacking planes. They didn't then take over the control of the plane as they did on 9/11, but it turns out that flying a plane is not that complicated. The problem, the complexity, involves landing the plane. Well, that wouldn't be a problem in this case. All they had to do is steer it. None of this would have happened without the leftist-controlled media. The leftist-controlled media also pushes the catastrophic anthropogenic global warming hoax. Many people believe, for example, that the glaciers will soon be melted. Some sea ice may melt. Glaciers are a topped landmass removed from the sea. They remain cold all year long, well above the melting point. The glaciers are sometimes 2 miles thick. They don't ever melt. They're not going to melt anytime soon. The greatest sea level we can see will be a few meters over the course of the next several centuries. Maybe they could just as easily refreeze and sea level could drop because of climate change, which is natural and variable. The latest hoaxer, Richard Mueller, is trying to be extremely subtle by saying, oh, it's true that Al Gore was a clown. He's a joke. He really did us more harm than good. He's not a scientist. Everything he said in his presentation was all wrong, erroneous, misleading. No, we should never say that that storm could be attributed to global warming. We should never say that that wildfire could be attributed to global warming. We ought to stop showing pictures of the polar bears on the ice caps. The polar bears are fine. They're not even diminishing in number. Some say they're increasing in number. All this does is cause people to be more skeptical. And he claims to have proof. He claims to have proof that global warming is real, and it can be attributed to human beings, human activity. He claims to have this proof. Basically, he has a chart. He has a chart, and here it is. It's a chart superimposed on the IPCC's chart. His chart is in dark black, and supposedly it confirms that the climate data used by the UN and the Hadley Center is correct. Nobody really disputes this chart, except what Mueller has done here is superimposed his chart on top of the other chart, the previous chart, and thus fuzzed out the Little Ice Age, the spike that I call the Gore spike. He minimizes the variations. It could very well be that we're just slightly warmer than we were during the Gore spike. He attempts to be a reconciler, pretends to be a reconciler, and to confess all the sins of the global warming alarmists in order to lower the guard of the thoughtful skeptic who might be in a position of influence. The thoughtful skeptic in a position of influence is the target of Richard Mueller. But when you look at what he's got, what has he got? What has he got? He has nothing. He has nothing. He has nothing. He commissioned another study of the temperatures and found out that, the way he describes it, the IPCC was correct. The warming is there. regardless of where you put the weather stations, the heat island effect does not distort the data. But it does away with the Gore spike and the Little Ice Age. A 1.5 degree temperature increase is normal. That's what has been happening in the past for 10, 12,000 years.